Hello and thank you for joining College to Consulting. In today's class, we're going to go over M&As, mergers and acquisitions. And these cases are a little bit more complex, but they're not impossible to navigate through if you have a solid framework. Okay, let's take a look. Mergers and acquisitions are distinct. Now, people throw the words M&A or the letters M&A around quite loosely, but they are very, very, very similar, but very distinct. Here is what a merger is. Mergers are essentially when two companies combine into one. An example is AOL and Time Warner Cable. They became AOL Time Warner. This is when AOL used its online mail system and their instant messaging system and search sites combined with Time Warner Cable. And Time Warner Cable is essentially like a Comcast or an RCN or AT&T cable provider. Another example is United Airlines and Continental Airlines. And this is when United Airlines, who is based in Chicago, and Continental Airlines, which is based in Houston, became one airline. And they kept the name United Airlines, but management from Continental came over to run United. Another example is American Airlines and U.S. Airways, where same thing is happening. U.S. Airways management is going to run American Airlines, but keep the American Airlines name. Okay. An acquisition is when one company just flat out buys another company. A great relevant example is PricewaterhouseCoopers and Booz formed this group called Strategy & which is still under PricewaterhouseCoopers. So in this instance, it's not PwC Booz, it's just still PwC. PwC just bought Booz and then rebranded it as Strategy & Another example is Disney and Lucasfilms. They just kept it as Disney. Disney essentially just bought Lucasfilms and bought the rights to a lot of their products, but it's still Disney management that's running everything. Another thing to note is that most M&As are very, very tough to execute. And in fact, approximately 70% of M&As fail. And this is a stat, I think, from an original McKinsey piece of research, but it shows that a lot of M&As are really, really, really tough to pull off. So let's look at how you can pull it off, though. Let's say this is the case prompt you get. Should company M buy company A? What we have first is we have our framework sheet of paper, and I want to look at the macro level. So I want to look at the market, and here I want to know, okay, great, company M and company A. What are the products that they make? What's the competition like for these products? What's the industry like? And then we'll move into a micro level part, which is the actual M&A. So under here, I want to know a couple of things. One, what are the synergies? And I'm going to draw this out. So synergies are, why would this be good? Think about it that way. One thing is we have resources. So let's imagine that Apple and Google were to merge. Two big behemoths. Now we have more people that work for us. We have more metal and other hardware items to use. Another one is market share. Now if Apple had 25% of the market, and if Google had another 25% of the market, this one company now has a total of 50% of the market. Otherwise, you can beat your competition. Now because you are bigger and bigger behemoths, you can take down Microsoft and some other companies that would be considered as rivals in this group. Another one is product line. Now what this means is you have more differentiated products. So now Apple stores can sell a bunch of Google platforms, such as advanced Google Docs or anything else that Google really, really puts out. And similarly, Google can kind of start to use Apple's product suite to help enhance its features. Okay, so now you have more things to essentially sell. Next one is you have more locations to sell them at. Now you have the Apple retail stores, as well as a lot of the Google online space with their shopping cart and checkout functionality and whatnot. And the last one is sales. Now what you can do is, because you have all these parts put in play, make it easier for you to increase sales. So the yin to the yang of synergies is risks. And risks are what could potentially go wrong with this M&A. First one is culture. This is a big one that a lot of people don't really look at right away. But culture is huge for an M&A. And that's, I think, a big reason why a lot of them fail is it's just hard to assimilate culture. So imagine if a Southwest type of company, Southwest Airlines, or a Google-esque company, merged with, like a blue collar auto manufacturing firm, like a Ford. It's just very different. You have younger people here, more into staying really, really late at work and to just kind of goofing off, where you have other cultures where work is seen as very diligent from 9 to 5, and that's what you kind of do. Another risk is PR, public relations, and losing jobs. When you go through an M&A, you don't really need to hire anyone because you have too many people. So this looks pretty bad when you have to cut some jobs. Another big one is called cannibalization. Now, cannibalization means when you are essentially, you create a product that eats out the share of one of your existing products. So an example would be, let's say if Apple and Google launched, or they did a merger. Now what happened is that if someone buys a phone from Apple, they are essentially not buying a phone from Google. So it's eating into their own sales. The next one is opportunity cost. There's a risk where you can have done something else with your money. Next one is execution, meaning can you actually get this M&A to go through, get it to be operationalized and up and ready. And the last one is there demand? Now this is one to really focus on. Is there actually demand for why this M&A would be needed? All right, then we get into cost. So there are a couple parts you need to understand with cost. One is, what's the cost of the acquisition? How much does it cost to actually buy this company A? And the second is, when do we break even? Now, break even means for how much I put into this company, when do I make my money back at zero? Okay, and that's very, very important to learn, because you want to know how long it's going to take for this M&A to go through. And the last one is exit strategy. And exit strategy is, if 70% of M&As fail, we need a way to get out if it's not working. And one thing you could do is you could sell all of the company that you just bought. M could sell all of company A, or it could sell it in parts. Okay, so this is the framework for a general M&A type of case. Start off with the market, move into synergies, risk, cost, and exit strategy. Let's go into this in more depth. Here's an example of how an M&A did not do so hot. And we're going to look at AOL Time Warner. Okay, so first let's look at these synergies. Then we'll look at risks. Then we'll look at costs. And last will be the exit strategy. So I'm just going to draw this out. And with synergies, one was there was a big internet boom during this time. Second is Time Warner was a very strong cable magazine a lot of people read during the time. And AOL thought that what they could do is they could use AOL to promote Time Warner, and Time Warner could use their magazine and other cable services to promote AOL. So why would this be good? They can both cross-promote each other. The risk was no demand. No one cared about bundling their internet with their mail provider, online mail provider, and reading magazines from Time Warner about why they should get AOL. No one really cared about that at all. So cost was, initially it was worth this acquisition was worth $280 billion. After it turned out to be one of the worst mergers in history, it ended up being worth about just $500 million, which is less than 1% of what its original worth was, and it was used as a tax write-off. So horrible, horrible failure. Problem? No exit strategy. No idea of when this would be too bad to move on. Another example is Disney and Pixar. Let's see how they merged. So we'll look at synergies again, risks, costs, and exit strategy. Okay, so Disney and Pixar. Well, the synergies was that Pixar was just killing it in the movies. They were knocking out number ones like Toy Story, Cars, and some other awesome, famous Disney movies. Another one was that Disney, on the other hand, was the king of cartoons. They were the top animation company. And you probably think of Disney movies when you think about childhood. So what they wanted to do was they wanted to leverage these Pixar movies, but also to use Disney's marketing background because of their experience with the cartoon and the theme type of industries. So the risk was that culture. Pixar has a very whimsical culture where people are wearing kind of Hawaiian shirts, just kind of being very, very free at work. Another risk was that execution could ruin Pixar. If they did not do this M&A correctly, it would be too much for Pixar to handle. They may have to go bankrupt. So the acquisition cost Disney about $7.4 billion, but they made about $5 billion in sales per film afterward. An example is WALL-E and Up. These movies just made a lot of money, and the reason why is because Pixar was able to use Disney's marketing strategy to really promote these movies. At the same time, Disney was able to use Pixar's storytelling and their capabilities to also make a good contribution to their revenues. The exit strategy was basically just sell Pixar if it doesn't work. Okay, so now you've seen two stories of M&As, and we have the framework. And let's go back to this framework. The question was, should company M buy company A? So here's how I would say it. On my framework sheet of paper, what I'm going to do first is I want to look at the market. I'm going to draw a market. Here I just want to know what are the products that company M and A have, what's the competition like for this group, and what's the industry like. Then I want to look at the M&A. Under here, I want to know what are the synergies. And I want to potentially look at a couple things, such as what are the resources and synergies, what's the market share like, how can it help us beat our competition, what's the product line like, will we be able to get more product line or improved product line, where the locations so we see where there's overlap as well as where it can expand, and how can this help our sales. Okay, so after looking at synergies, I also want to look at potential risks. And risks are culture. Really need to think about culture and how important that is to both of the companies. Next is if we do end up letting some people go, we need to think about our public relations and how to really manage that. Cannibalization, I want to know if M&A would potentially eat each other's market share out because two products are too close and they are going to compete with each other. Next is opportunity cost. Was it an opportunity cost to do something else rather than buy company A? Execution. How will this thing be rolled out? M&As are historically very tough, so to think about execution will be good. And last is there even demand for a merger? Is it even really needed? Next, we'll look at costs. And with costs, essentially, we're going to first look at, well, what is the cost of the acquisition? If a normal acquisition takes about maybe 3-5 years, whatever it is, depending on the industry, and this M&A is taking like 8 years, 10 years, then we know that it's a very expensive ordeal that also is past our break-even time. So how much does it cost to do this M&A, and then when do we make our money back? And the last thing to look at is our exit strategy. An exit strategy, essentially, if this doesn't go well, we don't start making money by this point in time, we can sell all of the company we just bought or sell it in parts. Okay, like I said, M&As are a little bit tricky, so what you should do is check out a video that shows how to actually do one in a case. I think that'll help you out much more. Okay, thanks, and I will see you in the next class.